Hello, I'm Dr. Antonio Wolff, Interim Director of Breast and GYN Malignancies here at Johns Hopkins. The number of women being diagnosed with breast cancer each year continues to rise. And today, about 1 in 8 women will develop breast cancer in their lifetime. But while progress continues to be happening and new treatments are developed, about 40,000 women still die every year. And therefore, we now realize that the best way to cure breast cancer is to prevent it. The Fetting Fund for Breast Cancer Prevention at the Johns Hopkins Chemo Cancer Center was established to help find these women who are most at risk and to help develop prevention strategies to beat this disease before a cancer diagnosis. Today, I'm speaking with Fetting researcher, Dr. Daniele Gilkes. Dr. Gilkes, tell us a little bit about your background and your interest in breast cancer prevention.
So my name is Daniele Gilkes, and I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Oncology. My background, my PhD, is in cancer biology, and over the past 14 years, I've been working on breast cancer research. So my interest in breast cancer prevention comes from the fact that there have been a lot of emerging novel treatment options that have been very beneficial in the clinic and have decreased the mortality due to breast cancer. However, we still have an increase in the incidence of breast cancer.
There's a lot that we still need to learn. Could you tell us a little bit about the project that is being supported by the Fetting Fund?
So my interest is in breast density. And so we know that breasts are composed of fat, glandular tissue, and fibrous tissue. And breast density is the fibrous tissue. And fibrous tissue appears opaque on a dark background in a mammogram. And we know that women that have higher breast density are 4 times more likely to develop breast cancer than their counterparts with low breast density. And this is important because it's even more significant than the risk of breast cancer due to genetics or reproductive factors. So with early support from the Fetting Foundation, we've found several biomarkers that we believe are important for risk of breast cancer. We think of the fibrous tissue in the breast as a sort of sponge that holds growth factors. And we think of the cells around them as being fed by this sponge. So, for example, think about a fish in the ocean that is feeding off of a dense sea sponge. Now, we know that not all of these fish will go on to develop breast cancer, but we need to find out which of the fish are more likely to be affected by the fibrotic microenvironment and ultimately form a cancerous lesion. So the goal of our current project is to identify these biomarkers and test them. If we are lucky, then we can go on and actually use our findings to develop prevention strategies for women that are at higher risk of breast cancer due to their breast density. This is all important because as of September 2024, mammographers are required to provide an assessment of breast density on each mammogram report to provide this to patients as information. Our hope is to contribute to learning which of these patients that have high density will go on to develop breast cancer and are at higher risk.
This is so important and so clear. A final question. Donors, philanthropists, small and large, are always asking why this type of philanthropic support donations are so important for breast cancer research. Could you tell us how this has impacted your work?
The Fetting Fund has been instrumental in allowing us to take what we've learned in the lab, so these biomarkers that we think are important for patients that have high breast density, and to be able now to get donor samples from patients that have donated their normal breast tissue and then have been followed for over 10 years to determine whether or not they develop breast cancer. And from this retrospective patient cohort, we will now be able to examine our biomarkers of interest in patients with high mammographic density, low mammographic density, and those that go on to develop breast cancer or those that don't. And we really hope that if our biomarkers turn out to be positive, that we can use these in the future. So with this information on hand, from the data that we established through the Fetting Fund, which is difficult to really fund through other mechanisms, we will now be able to take this data and go on and develop larger studies using our pilot data in other grant applications.